Hey there, Cougars! Welcome back to Harbinger Weekly. I'm your host, Alexis Nellum with Harbinger Student Media. Today is Monday, April 10th, 2023. In this week's episode, we have a special feature. Dr. Sheila Quirk-Bailey, president of Illinois Central College, will share a little about her journey into leadership. She will offer a few words of wisdom for students currently in or going into leadership roles. Let's check out that interview now.
I'm Stephanie McCloskey with Harbinger Student Media, and today we are with Dr. Sheila Quirk-Bailey, president of ICC. Thank you so much for your time today.
Wonderful to have you stop by. I'm so excited to spend some time with you.
Us too. We are, in light of just celebrating Women in Leadership's month of March, we are going to be focusing a little bit on how you became a woman of leadership at ICC. And we can start out with, how about you tell us a little bit about your history prior to ICC?
Sure. Well, I actually grew up downstate in a small town, Caseyville, Illinois. It's in the Metro East, so now it's more suburban St. Louis, but it was very rural at the time I was there. And my parents, there were 5 of us, right? My dad had a factory job. My mom did in-home daycare, and I was one of the first generation to attend college.
Oh, nice. That's an accomplishment in itself. That's great. And what did you study what was your major?
My undergraduate degrees, I went to Bradley.
Okay.
And was on the speech team, which is why I ended up at Bradley. And so I had majored in communications and then had a business minor, which at Bradley is 30 hours in and of itself. So it was almost like at other colleges that would have been a double major.
Yeah.
And then did my master's degree. I was the assistant speech coach at Northern Illinois University, so I had a graduate assistantship. And so my degree there was in organizational communication.
Mm-hmm.
And then I waited quite a few years, and in my 50s went back and pursued my doctorate at the University of Maryland, and that degree is actually in leadership and management as opposed to education, because I sort of decided I think I had been in education quite a while, right, and if I was interested in being a president, that I should study officially leadership and management, so that's what I did.
So were you in education before you came to ICC as president?
Absolutely. So when I started my career right out of my master's program, I worked for Anderson Consulting, and so in their education division. So I was the person who would go in on major projects. For example, I worked in manufacturing. So when the Harley-Davidson plant in Milwaukee converted to manufacturing lines to cells, right, I was on the team that helped retrain the faculty, the factory workers. So I did that work for 7 years and then went to work for Harper College in Schaumburg, Illinois. And I was there for 26 years. And then it was from that position that I came to Illinois Central College to be the president.
So what was one of the biggest obstacles that you faced during your journey to becoming a woman in leadership?
I think, now remember, I graduated with my undergraduate degree in the early 80s. And I think this has gotten better, but at the time, it was very much a matter of there weren't a lot of women in leadership. There was very much the glass ceiling. And most of the criticism of women who wanted to be leaders is that they were bossy or they were inflexible, they weren't good listeners because they had a vision and they were helping to drive people towards that vision. At the same time, at least in my experience, men who were driven and who had a solid vision, they were called leaders and they were called decisive and they were called risk takers. So I think the expectations society had in those gender differences at the time was very similar. Behaviors between the genders were perceived very differently in organizations, both in, because I was in like I said, Anderson Consulting, so I was in the private world before I came into education. I do have to tell you, education, I think, was more accepting at the time, but it still wasn't, just wasn't an easy thing to do.
Who is your biggest inspiration to becoming a woman in leadership?
You know, that's an interesting question. Let me tell you a little bit more about my family. So my father dropped out of school before he graduated 8th grade. And he was from southeast Missouri, grew up in a family of poverty. I mean, they didn't have running water, indoor plumbing, right? So we're talking about really Appalachia type poverty in southeast Missouri. But he was a big kid. So he was over 6 feet tall in 8th grade. And so he dropped out and moved to St. Louis, as many other of the farm kids in that area did, and went to work in the factory. And they said, "Are you 18?" And he said, "Yes." Because he was so tall, he got away with it. And they said, "Well, show us your birth certificate." And he was born on the farm, so he didn't have one, right? So that it all worked. He just dropped out of school and went. My mother, on the other hand, back in those days in Missouri, there was a state test to graduate high school. So she was a high school graduate. And the 2 top test scores in the state could go anywhere to a state university of Missouri for free for all 4 years. And she was number 2 in her graduating class, but didn't go on to school because she married my father the weekend after she graduated high school. So my mother, even though she didn't have a college education, was always very keen on, she made her choice and didn't regret it, but she wanted to make sure that we had that opportunity. So I was the second of the 5 kids. So my sister did not go on to college, my older sister. I did. My brother went into the Navy. And I'd say there are other ways to get credentials other than just through higher education, right? The apprenticeships we have in this region are amazing, right? Wonderful family sustaining wage, wonderful opportunities. Not everyone wants to be in an office. Some people work with their hands, right? Yeah. So everyone's got their place and everyone's got their path, right? So that nothing's better than the other. So we have that. So he went into the Navy. And then my 2 youngest siblings, they're like, well, if Sheila can go to school, we can go to school, right? Right. So they went on and got their degrees. One's a chemist and the other one's a structural engineer.
Oh wow.
So so my mom was really my inspiration in terms of, what can you achieve, and you can achieve if you put your mind to it. And then once I decided I wanted to be in education and went into community colleges, again, I think my inspiration to be a leader was those 2, and they were both white males, but those experiences of what can be achieved in that top spot with the right vision for students in a community, and what that position, when it doesn't go well, the impact that could have. Yeah. Right. And then so my inspiration was, well, I think I can be that vision.
Well, what do you like to do for hobbies outside of ICC? What do you like to do in your free time?
I'm a big live concert person.
Really?
So COVID was very difficult for me because there wasn't a lot to go to. So in fact, I'm still catching up on rescheduled concerts during COVID, right, where they're still trying to get things rescheduled. But I love live music. Back in the day, in high school, I grew up playing the drums, so I played in like a country rock band in high school and some in college, and then had ended up selling my drums my last year of graduate school to help pay my tuition. Right, I sold just about everything my last year of graduate school to pay tuition. So that was when that ended. I love to, because I grew up on a farm, so I love to just my flowers and things in the yard. Love to travel. Love to spend time with my family. Yeah. Right, we're big campers.
Oh yes. Right. Nature people.
Yeah.
Love that.
So we call it camping. A lot of times it's cabins with air conditioning and cable, right? But we still call it camping.
Any words of wisdom that you can offer to students at ICC who are striving to be in leadership roles?
I do. When you want to be in leadership for leadership's sake, I would say just stop and re-examine, because a leadership role is really a service role. But if you know in your heart that you can serve well and you can help people and organizations move forward, then don't be discouraged. Not every organization is going to be the right fit. Not every culture is going to be the right fit. But if you give up, because there will be setbacks along the way, and if you give up or you receive some feedback, well, that's one person's opinion. That's one organization's opinion. And if you know that's where you belong, don't let that stop you. Just don't let that stop you. I think sometimes we self-select, right, to something based on the opinions of other people. And I'm not saying don't grow and learn from others. That's not what I'm trying to say. But when you have that moment, like I had that moment, I said, look, I think I can do a better job. I see what that should be, and I want to put myself out there to try, right? Don't think that there weren't people to say, well, what makes you think, who are you, right? And what makes you, right? We all hear that. So if you want to be a leader and you're looking to do it out of a heart of service, then continue on that path, make your decisions, right, in a way that promotes you to that path, and don't let one piece of feedback or one organizational environment or one person, right, impact that. You got to keep going.
It was nice hearing from Dr. Sheila Quirk-Bailey about leadership. That wraps it up for this week's episode. Be sure to check out our other content at icharbinger.com. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button below. Again, I'm Alexis Nellum. Until next week, go Cougars. Harbinger Student Media, covering areas of education for sake of the liberation, with ICC information.